Καλησπέρα σε όλους. Το Νοέμβρη του 2011, υπό την πίεση των αγορών και των Βρυξελών, ο Ιταλός πρωθυπουργός Σίλβιο Μπερλουσκόνι υποβάλλει την παραίτησή του. Για την Ιταλία κλείνει ένα μεγάλο κεφάλαιο στη σύγχρονη ιστορία της. Ο άνθρωπος που πρωταγωνίστησε στην πολιτική σκηνή της χώρας επί 2 δεκαετίες αποσύρεται και αφήνει πίσω του μια οικονομία που ακροβατεί στη δεδομένο σκηνή και ένα λαό διχασμένο ανάμεσα σε αντιπάλους και υποστηρικτές του φαινομένου Μπερλουσκόνι. Απόψε στην Εμπόλεμη Ζώνη, το πρώτο μέρος ενός ντοκιμαντέρ για τον τροβαδούρο της αγάπης που μεγαλούργησε στο χώρο των κατασκευαστικών εταιριών, κατέκτησε την ιδιωτική τηλεόραση και κατάφερε να γοητεύσει τους Ιταλούς ψηφοφόρους σε 3 εκλογικές αναμετρήσεις.
Lei non scherza?
Non
Senta,
diciamo come chiamano lei, perché non si può dire in trasmissione.
Mi piacerebbe di saperlo, non lo so. Non so di avere...
L'ho detto a paragone, dopo glielo dico.
Vabbè. Numero 1, l'immenso, l'unico. A proposito, no, scusate,
He's the modern version of the Roman emperors.
He is a purely political animal. He's one of the most intelligent persons I ever met.
A seller of dreams, false dreams.
One of the greatest salesmen I never seen in my life. You know, he can sell you everything.
I would describe him as a man relatively intelligent, absolutely incompetent, with a narcissistic element of his personality that by far outgrow the normal level that any scholar of psychiatry would accept.
Vuole sentire? No, senta, cosa sento? Senta col naso. È odore di santità.
As the great corrupter. I think he has had a great effect of corrupting this country.
Per la vita privata io credo di essere una persona diamantina.
He's a good liar and he convinces everybody, himself included.
I don't think he's honest. I think that he lives like in a sort of film, a sort of storytelling scenario.
Diffidate da coloro che non sanno ridere e soprattutto
A funny man, actually something incredible. He adjusted the tie to everybody, adjusting the shoulders, which it makes also with Putin, who gets crazy and would like to kill him, because they are saying Vladimir and adjusting hair and.
He could be also an alien, in my opinion. He could have been projected somewhere in the galaxy.
I wasn't proud to be Italian with him as a prime minister.
siete così bravi che mi viene voglia di invitarvi al Bunga Bunga. Complimenti e grazie. Sì, sei abbastanza carino.
Young women are for him just a surrogate. It's a sort of theater, a sort of sexy theater.
Ragazza rappresenta l'Italia, quindi... Allora, prego. Allora, questa ragazza che ha vinto le finali universitarie, sì.
His dream is to be considered by the women as daddy. A little dirty and tricky daddy, but still a daddy. Somebody who is seductive and protective. A little pimp, a little daddy, a little brother, but never just a lover.
Sarebbe perfetto per un quadro di Andy Warhol, è un personaggio perfetto per la pop art.
Ci sono in giro un mare di belle figliuole e di imprenditori solidi e io non sono un santo, lo avete capito tutti.
He's the communicator, he's the maverick, he's the strategist guy, he's the guy who sits down with advertising people and says, what do the Italians think? What is their belly?
I think Mr. Berlusconi is a great populist, but perhaps a populist in the sense that we've known other populist dictators like President Perón of Argentina, Latin American dictatorships and so on.
It's, you know, it's the populistic mediatic mogul, that the tycoon that basically controls the votes and the mind of a country of 60 million people.
Ho troppa stima dell'intelligenza degli italiani per pensare che ci siano in giro così tanti coglioni che possono votare facendo il proprio disinteresse.
There are evidences through mobile wiretaps that he likes the company of a young girl called Ruby Rubacuore, and this girl is a minor. And in the August of 2010, this girl gets arrested by the police. She calls a friend, a very young girl, friend of Berlusconi, called Minetti. Minetti decides to call Berlusconi and gets this girl out of the police headquarters because apparently she might be in a situation to tell things that Berlusconi and Minetti don't want to become public. Berlusconi decides to call the police headquarters personally and says, let the girl go, this is an international affair, this is a state affair, she's Mubarak's niece.
Io sono intervenuto come Presidente del Consiglio perché ero preoccupato che non potesse succedere un episodio un incidente diplomatico internazionale.
Prosecutors start an investigation and they realize that the girl, when he was seeing Berlusconi, she was a minor, and incidentally, she was not Mubarak's niece, and there was no reason whatsoever for the girl to leave the police headquarters and be released without charge.
A group of journalists, colleagues and myself got him to accept an invitation to a private dinner party which we gave in a Rome hotel, and he turned up. He didn't eat very much, but for 4 hours he answered our questions in a very open way about absolutely everything, including his relationship with this dancer called Ruby. He said to us quite openly, he said, you know, I honestly thought she was over 24. Everybody knew she was over 24. And anyway, I was doing a favour to my friend, Hosni Mubarak, the president of Egypt.
No, sapevo che avevo 24 anni, anche perché dicevo a tutte le persone di avere 24 anni, perché non volevo che si sapesse che ero minorenne.
Non c'è stata quindi nessuna concussione, non c'è stata nessuna induzione alla prostituzione, benché meno di minorenni. Non c'è stato nulla di cui mi debba vergognare.
Ruby scandal went out of the blue. She was in an Italian family as an adopted child or something like that. In Sicily then she left his family. Beautiful girl, she became a young prostitute before meeting Berlusconi. This young woman is a typical human sample of Berlusconi land, meaning this kind of around 18, between 18, 17, 20 maximum, girls, beautiful, glamorous, not too modest, as we can say, but in some case just pure, real prostitutes, brought there. And Berlusconi defends himself, say, I didn't know that they brought me girls, beautiful girls, nothing to say. In many, many cases, that was all. In other cases, there was something more.
Io non ho versato una lira, un euro per avere una prestazione sessuale. E allora confermo, al di là di questo, che nella mia vita io non ho mai, neppure una volta, dovuto dare dei soldi a qualcuno per una prestazione sessuale. E le dico anche perché. Perché da chi ama conquistare, la gioia e la soddisfazione più bella è la conquista.
Η 17χρονη Μαροκινή Καρίμα Ελ Μπαχρούγκ, γνωστή και ως Ρούμπι, ήταν η τελευταία πέτρα σε ένα βουνό ροζ σκανδάλων με πρωταγωνιστές τον Σίλβιο Μπερλουσκόνι και μια στρατιά από νέες όμορφες κοπέλες που συμμετείχαν στα λεγόμενα μπουγκα-μπουγκα πάρτι. Κάθε φορά που ξεσπούσε ένα τέτοιο σκάνδαλο, οι αντίπαλοι του Ιταλού πρώην Πρωθυπουργού προεξοφλούσαν το τέλος της πολιτικής του καριέρας. Ωστόσο, το κέριο χτύπημα στον άνθρωπο που κυριάρχησε στην πολιτική ζωή της Ιταλίας επί 2 δεκαετίες δεν το κατάφεραν ούτε οι νεαρές καλονές, ούτε οι αμέτρητες δικαστικές περιπέτειες, ούτε ο αγώνας της αντιπολίτευσης, ούτε καν τα πολιτικά του σφάλματα. Ο Μπερλουσκόνι κατέρευσε όταν τον εγκατέλειψε ο Θεός που λάτρεψε από τα πρώτα βήματά του ως νεαρός επιχειρηματίας στο Μιλάνο. Ο Θεός της ελεύθερης οικονομίας και του χρήματος. Ο Σίλβιο Μπερλουσκόνι δεν ανήκει στην Ιταλική αριστοκρατία. Εισβάλλει ξαφνικά στο χώρο των κατασκευαστικών εταιριών, αφήνοντας ερωτήματα για το ρόλο της μαφίας στη χρηματοδότησή του. Ακόμη και όταν χτίζει ολόκληρες κομμοπόλεις στα προάστια του Μιλάνου και γίνεται εκατομμυριούχος πριν κλείσει τα 40, ο μύθος του στην πραγματικότητα γιγαντώνεται μόνο όταν αποφασίζει να οικοδομήσει εκ του μηδενός την Ιταλική ιδιωτική τηλεόραση. Τα κανάλια του Μπερλουσκόνι με τις σαπουνόπερες, τα τηλεπαιχνίδια, το ποδόσφαιρο και τις ημίγυμνες καλονές δεν επηρεάζουν μόνο την κουλτούρα ενός ολόκληρου λαού, αλλά ουσιαστικά προλιένουν το έδαφος για την έλευση ενός μεγιστάνατον μίντια σε ρόλο πολιτικού μεσία. Μιλάνο. Εδώ το 1936 γεννήθηκε ο Σίλβιο Μπερλουσκόνι. Ο πατέρας του ήταν στέλεχος στο υποκατάστημα μιας τοπικής τράπεζας. Η μητέρα του φρόντιζε το σπίτι και τα άλλα 2 αδέρφια του. Ο νεαρός Σίλβιο πήγε σε καθολικό σχολείο και αργότερα στο Πανεπιστήμιο της πόλης για να σπουδάσει στη νομική. Στα φοιτητικά του χρόνια κερδίζει το χαρτζηλίκι του ερμηνεύοντας τραγούδια του Φρανκ Σινάτρα και γαλλικές μπαλάντες σε κρουαζιερόπλια στη Μεσόγειο.
He would sing French songs to tourists and punters, and apparently was very good. Of course, he kept a passion for music and songs throughout the years. He's still producing his own CDs with Apicella.
He was often in Paris. He had a love in Paris. He was a kind of bohemian. He was in the cruise in summer, singing for ladies and gentlemen, more ladies, and he considered always himself so irresistibly witty and glamorous and loved. So he has a very, very strong ego, and he always was surrounded by people in total adoration.
Τελειώνοντας το πανεπιστήμιο στις αρχές της δεκαετίας του 60, παραδίδει μια πρωτότυπη πτυχιακή εργασία με θέμα τη διαφήμιση και αποσπά βραβείο. Ωστόσο, ο Σίλβιο έχει πάρει την απόφαση να ασχοληθεί με την κατασκευή και την αγοραπολισία ακινήτων. Με δάνεια της τράπεζας του πατέρα του, χτίζει ένα οικοδομικό τετράγωνο στη Βία Αλτσάτη και αργότερα μια ολόκληρη κομμόπολη λίγο έξω από το Μιλάνο. Ο Ο 27χρονος επιχειρηματίας εκμεταλλεύεται την αυξημένη ζήτηση διαμερισμάτων, αποτέλεσμα της εκρηκτικής οικονομικής ανάπτυξης των αστικών κέντρων της μεταπολεμικής Ιταλίας, και εκείνη την εποχή κερδίζει τον τίτλο «Ο βασιλιάς του Τούβλου». Το 1965 παντρεύεται την πρώτη του σύζυγο, Κάρλα Ελβίρα Νταλόγλου, με την οποία θα αποκτήσει 2 παιδιά. Το έργο με το οποίο θα βάλει τις βάσεις της αυτοκρατορίας του θα ξεκινήσει τη δεκαετία του 70 κάπου εδώ, κοντά στο αεροδρόμιο Λινάτε του Μιλάνου. Το Μιλάνο 2 είναι ένα τεράστιο συγκρότημα κατοικιών με προδιαγραφές για 10.000 κατοίκους, κυρίως από τη μεγαλοαστική τάξη. Ο ευφυής Μπερλουσκόνι λέγεται ότι διπλασίασε την αξία των διαμερισμάτων, αλλάζοντας την προσέγγιση των αεροπλάνων στο αεροδρόμιο Λινάτε, ώστε να μειωθεί η χορύπανση πάνω από το νεόκτιστο Μιλάνο 2.
It is indeed still a very interesting project. Even now in the 21st century, as you drive through, it does feel like a whole new city. Bit of a Truman Show kind of city, because it's kind of unreal with security guards and everything looks very polished and proper. 5,700 flats in Milan too, all very expensive. The big question is, where did he raise the money? There are rumors and speculation that the Sicilian mafia might have invested into Berlusconi's business. How do we know this? Because Berlusconi in the 1970s felt the need to protect himself from the mafia and very much the terrorists. At the time, the Red Brigades were very active. The threat of kidnapping for himself and his family, his wife and his 2 children. So he decided to get a Sicilian godfather. He probably didn't know it, but he was a Sicilian godfather, a mafioso, into his property. This is Mangano, through the Lutri. He's a right-hand man at the time, and of course his best pal at university.
Well, the Lutri is has a key role in his relationship with Sicily. And as you know, he is still facing a lot of trouble, justice trouble, yes. This is, the dark side.
Το 2009 συναντήσαμε σε μυστική τοποθεσία στη Ρώμη τον Γκαετάνο Γκράντο. Ο Γκράντο προέρχεται από τα σπλάχνα της Κοζανόστρα. Έκανε τον πρώτο του φόνο σε ηλικία 16 ετών. Πολλοί λένε ότι αν δεν είχε συλληφθεί θα ήταν σήμερα ο νονός του Παλέρμο. Από το 2000 συνεργάζεται με τις Ιταλικές αρχές και έχει μπει σε ένα πρόγραμμα προστασίας μαρτύρων. Είναι ένας μαφιόζο πεντίτο, ένας μετανοημένος μαφιόζος. Ο Γκράντο γνωρίζει πολλά μυστικά της μαφίας. Γνωρίζει τον γερουσιαστή Μαρτσέλο Ντελούτρι, εκ των ιδρυτών του Φόρτσα Ιτάλια, του κόμματος του Μπερλουσκόνι. Γνωρίζει επίσης τον μυστηριώδη Βιτόριο Μάγκανο, μετέπειτα αρχηγό της οικογένειας Πόρτα Νουόβα.
Lei ha mai conosciuto Vittorio Mangano?
Come no? L'ho cresciuto io. Vittorio Mangano era un ladro. Me lo sono messo vicino io e dopo anni che lui seguiva me si è inquadrato a fare la persona seria, che lui aveva la tendenza a essere malavitoso. Io posso dirle solo questo: quando Vittorio Mangano è andato a fare lo stalliere da Berlusconi, era a Milano perché lui aveva un massimo rispetto per me, e mi ha chiesto: posso andare a fare un stalliere da Berlusconi? Per motivi miei ho detto vai, e è andato lì. Ma l'incontro che io ho fatto con Marcello Del Lutri, con Berlusconi, che hanno uscito io e mio fratello, con Marcello Del Lutri e Berlusconi, io purtroppo le devo dire che di politica non gliene posso parlare.
Σύμφωνα με μαρτυρίες, το 1976 συναντήθηκαν και έφαγαν σε εστιατόριο του Μιλάνου ο Γκαετάνο Γκράντο με τον αδερφό του, ο φύλακας των στάβλων του Μπερλουσκόνι, Βιτόριο Μάγκανο, και ο Μαρτσέλο Ντελούτρι, στενός φίλος του Ιταλού πρώην Πρωθυπουργού. Το 1997 ένας δημοσιογράφος της ΡΑΗ προσπάθησε να στριμώξει τον Ντελούτρι.
Ecco, ma lei la mafia l'ha vista solo al cinema, come capita alla maggior parte di noi, oppure anche negli occhi?
Certo che l'ho vista al cinema.
Solo al cinema?
Sì, l'ho anche letta sui libri. Certo.
Ecco, e come se la immagina?
ma non esiste la mafia, dobbiamo tornare ai discorsi che facevano i primi mafiosi. Che cos'è la mafia?
Che cos'è la mafia?
La mafia c'è un posto dove lei va a bussare e dice permette, qui c'è la mafia che è il direttore generale, non esiste. La mafia è un modo di essere, un modo di pensare, io credo. È una cultura che non è la mia.
Κανείς δεν μπόρεσε να αποδείξει με ατράνταχτα στοιχεία κάποια σχέση της μαφίας με τον Μπερλουσκόνι. Ο δαιμόνιος επιχειρηματίας και αργότερα πρωθυπουργός της χώρας υποστηρίζει ότι τα κεφάλαια για την κατασκευή του Μιλάνο 2, αν και ακολούθησαν μια περίεργη διαδρομή μέσω λογαριασμών και εταιριών στην Ελβετία, είναι απολύτως καθαρά και νόμιμα.
This is Berlusconi, the 1970s. Milan is a very mobile place, socially and economically. You can easily make a lot of money, and Berlusconi has a lot of friends. You know, he starts getting connected with the politicians. He becomes friends with Craxi, who is the leading and aspiring politician of the Socialist Party. In 1976, Craxi becomes the secretary of the Socialist Party, of course, in power with the Christian Democrats. Berlusconi at that time is liaising with the Christian Democrats and the Socialists in Milan and in Rome, trying to get to know them and trying to liaise. Of course, at the moment, Berlusconi is only a real estate entrepreneur.
A Milano tutto quello che è importante nasce, a Milano succedono tutte le cose importanti. Ecco, Roma è il centro politico e niente altro, però.
Ma queste decisioni politiche pesano in modo condizionante sulle scelte?
Ahimè sì. Io sono un qualunquista da questo punto di vista, perché quando tutti sono preoccupati che siamo in crisi di governo, io ho degli amici che mi telefonano da New York e mi dicono per Bacco ti va male, non c'è il governo. Io invece gli dico guarda che sto brindando a champagne, mi auguro che non ci sia per molto tempo.
Με αφετηρία το Μιλάνο 2 και αργότερα άλλο ένα παρόμοιο κτηριακό συγκρότημα, το Μιλάνο 3, ο φιλόδοξος επιχειρηματίας και εργολάβος θα προχωρήσει σε μια καθοριστική κίνηση για την εξέλιξή του, αλλά και την ίδια τη χώρα.
He decides that the time is ready for Milan 2 to have a cable TV. That is 1980. He creates a small Tele Milano, a small cable TV, literally just for the residents. But you can imagine we're talking about between 15 and 20,000 residents, very wealthy, very affluent, very educated and cultivated. And that's what he wants. He wants to make some programming for these people.
E qui per prendere la parola l'editore della nostra televisione di Tele Milano, che tutti voi sapete è Sίλvιο Μπερλουσκόνι.
Non è stato facile, non è facile, credetemi, fare una televisione, perché in Italia non esiste alcun know-how per una televisione privata.
Pensò di costruire una piccola televisione di quartiere, neanche di città, di quartiere, rifornendola però di film, contenuti, documentari, cartoni animati. Questo fu l'inizio del progetto televisivo.
Ο Giorgio Gori βρέθηκε στο πλευρό του Μπερλουσκόνι το 1984, σε ηλικία 24 ετών. Αργότερα έγινε διευθυντής προγράμματος στο μεγαλύτερο κανάλι του. Θυμάται ακόμη με θαυμασμό πως ο πολυμήχανος Σίλβιο κατάφερε να ξεπεράσει τα νομικά εμπόδια που ως τότε διατηρούσαν το μονοπόλιο της κρατικής ΡΑΗ και επέτρεπαν τη λειτουργία μόνο τοπικών ιδιωτικών σταθμών.
L'intuizione di Berlusconi fu quella di immaginare di poter trasmettere, così come la legge prescriveva, sì nei singoli ambiti regionali e non nazionalmente, ma trasmettendo in simultanea lo stesso programma su 20 regioni in Italia si otteneva la simulazione di un network a copertura nazionale.
The genius idea was to unify the daily program, sending the cassettes, the same cassette of the same movie, of the same day, to 20, 30, 40 different TV local stations.
Το τέχνασμα με τις ίδιες κασέτες, ταυτόχρονα σε πολλούς περιφερειακούς σταθμούς και η ψευδαίσθηση της μετάδοσης ενός προγράμματος από έναν τηλεοπτικό σταθμό εθνικής εμβέλειας δεν θα μπορούσε να διαρκέσει για πολύ. Από το 1973 έως το 1984, ο Μπερλουσκόνι είχε 3 κύρια ιδιωτικά κανάλια. Το κανάλε 5, το Italia 1 και το Rete 4. Ήταν καιρός το εγχείρημά του να νομιμοποιηθεί.
There was a link between Bettino Craxi, the politician, and the prime minister for a while, and Berlusconi. Bettino Craxi made the parliament vote the law pro-Berlusconi and pro his own TV, so he could eventually have the permission to broadcast openly all over the Italian soil and covertures.
Lei crede che senza un governo Craxi ci sarebbero stati tanti decreti Berlusconi? Almeno un paio, penso.
Ma io credo che assolutamente ci sarebbero stati dei decreti per rimediare a una situazione che non era una situazione che la gente condivideva. Anzi, il fatto che Craxi fosse il Presidente del Consiglio era una remora, essendo nota la sua amicizia per me e la mia per lui. Invece, con un atto che ritengo coraggioso, Craxi e con lui tutto il governo, perché poi è stato un decreto che è stato votato all'unanimità dai membri del governo, un decreto che poi anche tutte le indagini che sono seguite hanno dimostrato essere giusto. Il 92% degli italiani ha giudicato giusto l'operato del governo in quell'occasione.
Για τον Μπερλουσκόνι, ο τομέας των κατασκευών δεν ανταποκρινόταν στην ταχύτητα που απαιτούσε για να υλοποιεί τις επιχειρηματικές ιδέες του. Στην τηλεόραση, αντίθετα, κάτι που θα σκαρφιζόταν το πρωί, θα αποτυπωνόταν το βράδυ στο γυαλί. Ο μαγικός κόσμος της μικρής οθόνης τον είχε κερδίσει και θα έκανε τα πάντα για να κυριαρχήσει στο τηλεοπτικό στερέωμα. Απέναντι στη δυσκίνητη, συντηρητική και αναχρονιστική δημόσια ράη, ο ανερχόμενος μεγιστάνας θα παρατάξει τον όμιλο Fininvest, την ομπρέλα των εταιριών του, τη Mediaset, την αυαρχίδα των 3 καναλιών του και κυρίως τον διαφημιστικό κολοσσό Publitalia, που θα ανοίξει το δρόμο στην τηλεοπτική διαφήμιση για χιλιάδες μικρομεσαίες επιχειρήσεις.
He decided that advertisement was the thing and not the program, and he placed all the efforts of his new empire on the advertisement, and considering secondary and absolutely of no relevance the program. There was a time in which he came to me asking which programs should he buy from American televisions or American producers. And I remember I introduced to him my 8-year-old daughter, which was the real competent in the family, that told him all the programs that he should buy, and he bought them.
Paul Kelsey ha cambiato identità.
Berlusconi, da uomo di mercato, di marketing, cominciò a immaginare una televisione che conformasse i suoi contenuti ai gusti dei suoi telespettatori, così come in tutto il mondo, soprattutto dove prevalgono criteri di mercato. E quindi gli italiani cominciarono a vedere cose che non avevano mai visto, i film americani, le serie, la televisione a colori, il varietà, ha fatto i programmi comici.
Berlusconi becomes an innovator, so you have interesting comedians and satirists on his channel, but it's mainly entertainment, pure entertainment, directed to very much the people that watch a lot of TV, housewives, elderly people, the children, endless cartoons, mangas, and lots of, mostly importing from Japan and very much from America. Dallas, Dynasty. The Italians are glued to the screen watching these soap operas. And beautiful, which started in the 1980s, still running now. So Berlusconi understands that to make money, you have to entertain.
Certainly the influence he has had in moulding Italian taste and creating a consumer society based on the values of commercial television has been very great.
Ο David Willey, ανταποκριτής του BBC στην Ιταλία επί 40 χρόνια, θυμάται ότι το 1980 ήταν καλεσμένος σε ένα από τα κανάλια του Μπερλουσκόνι στην πολιτική εκπομπή του δημοσιογράφου Gianfranco Funari. Στο στούντιο, ο Willey και οι άλλοι δημοσιογράφοι θα έκαναν ερωτήσεις στους Ιταλούς πολιτικούς που βρίσκονταν στο πάνελ.
And I was absolutely amazed when after a moment or two, a few questions, they stopped for a commercial break and Mr. Funari, instead of continuing his political talk, started to sell pajamas. on the films, on the TV set right by the side. And that was something completely novel to me that I'd never seen. And after he'd done his commercial spot and for his pajama company that was buying this airtime, we continued our political discussion. But it was, for me, a bit shocking, never having been used to working in commercial television.
Ο Μπερλουσκόνι θα κέρδιζε τους Ιταλούς τηλεθεατές προβάλλοντας οτιδήποτε προκαλούσε εντυπωσιασμό, ερωτική διέγερση και πάνω απ' όλα πάθος για ηλική ευημερία και κατανάλωση. Τα κανάλια του στόχευαν συγκεκριμένες ομάδες τηλεθεατών. Το Italia Uno μετέδιδε παιδικά προγράμματα. Το Rete 4 μαγνήτιζε τις νοικοκυρές και τους ηλικιωμένους με αμερικάνικες σαπουνόπερες. Το οικογενειακό κανάλε 5 απευθυνόταν σε μικρούς και μεγάλους με σύριαλ και μπόλικο ποδόσφαιρο. Οι άντρες καθυλώνονταν κυρίως από τα καλήγραμμα μοντέλα στα reality show. Το τηλεπαιχνίδι Κόλπο Γκρόσο τη δεκαετία του 80, με καλονές να αφαιρούν σιγά σιγά τα ρούχα τους, ήταν το πρώτο στο είδος του παγκοσμίως. Η συντηρητική ράη των ντοκιμαντέρ ήταν αδύνατο να υιοθετήσει ένα τόσο αισθησιακό προφίλ. Έτσι άφησε τη Mediaset να κερδίσει το 60% του τηλεοπτικού κοινού.
Deep decadence, ugly decadence in ethics and corruption. Corruption, I mean sexual corruption. I used to live for a few years in New York City, and I remember when with the remote control I tried with a satellite to reach Italy. I mean Italy, not only Berlusconi's TV. And it was always quizzes and half-naked, beautiful, tall girls, and that was Italy.
Io penso che il segno principale, ribadisco, è un segno positivo. C'è stata potremmo dire una secolarizzazione della cultura italiana a cui la televisione commerciale ha dato il suo contributo, ma chi è portato a ricondurre a questi programmi, ad un certo tipo di intrattenimento, tutti i mali della società italiana, dice delle cose che non hanno alcun fondamento. Io stesso, che sono stato per molti anni alla guida della principale rete televisiva di quel gruppo fino al 2001, e poi ho fatto il produttore e ho fatto programmi spesso criticati dalle stesse persone che pensano che Berlusconi abbia cambiato in peggio la testa degli italiani, tendo a rifiutare questo tipo di addebito. Gli italiani sono assolutamente in grado di scegliere, hanno scelto e hanno premiato col consenso alcuni programmi, quando si sono stufati di vederli hanno visto dell'altro e quei programmi sono stati chiusi, come è normale in tutto il mondo.
La télévision à laquelle nous commençons à penser, c'est pas une télévision Coca-Cola, c'est pas une télévision spaghetti, ça serait mieux une télévision Beaujolais. Champagne le samedi.
Berlusconi's televisions, TV channels have been something like an industry of desire, the industry of collective desires, dreams and desires. And his capability to propose dreams and to satisfy desires has been crucial to his success in politics. There has been a sort of perception of Mr. Berlusconi as a dream realizer, a man who was able to understand our collective dreams and desires and to give them a sort of indirect satisfaction by means of TV programs, by means of a lifestyle. He has the interpreter of a very fascinating lifestyle, a man capable to obtain, to get everything he wanted.
Παράλληλα με την τηλεοπτική του αυτοκρατορία, ο Μπερλουσκόνι επενδύει και στα έντυπα. Το 1977 αγοράζει μετοχές της συντηρητικής εφημερίδας Il Giornale και στις αρχές της δεκαετίας του 90, εκτοπίζοντας επίδοξους ανταγωνιστές, αγοράζει το μεγαλύτερο εκδοτικό οίκο της χώρας, τον θρυλικό Μοντατόρο. Από αυτό εδώ το κτηριακό συγκρότημα, λίγα χιλιόμετρα έξω από το Μιλάνο, λέγεται ότι ελέγχει το 40% των Ιταλικών εντύπων.
Tutti i progetti della mia vita all'inizio tutti li hanno considerati ambiziosi, eccessivamente ambiziosi, tutti i progetti della mia vita, tutti. Fatemi dare questo piccolo fatto d'orgoglio. Chi c'è in Italia che può paragonare la sua storia personale quanto a successi a qui presente il signor Berlusconi?
Grazie. Dottor Berlusconi, lei è il personaggio di questo dicono di lei. Come gli spettatori vedono questo? Sίλvιο Μπερλουσκόνι, milanese, 49 anni. Classico esempio di uomo che si è fatto da solo. Comincia con l'edilizia negli anni del boom, ma diventa un nome soprattutto con le televisioni private e con l'editoria. Dice di dormire non più di 4 ore per notte. Qualche volta parla di sé anche in terza persona. Ha detto, ad esempio, il 92% degli italiani adorano Berlusconi. È inutile accusarlo di aver creato un monopolio. Risponde che le sue sono le dimensioni giuste per una sana economia. Alcuni esperti guardano con diffidenza al moltiplicarsi delle sue iniziative, ma lui annuncia nuovi progetti. I critici hanno qualche obiezione sulla consistenza dei suoi programmi televisivi, ma lui risponde convinto che sta facendo cultura.
I think that Berlusconi is a sort of new interpreter of an ancient Italian archetype, the archetype of the emperor. See, he's the modern version of the Roman emperors. And his power system is something similar to what should have been the political and psychological system of the ancient Roman Empire.
If you go to the Castello Sforzeschi Milan, you see the big snake, which comes from the Visconti and Sforza family, which were the family that dominated the Italian medieval and Renaissance time. He decides more politely to put a biscione, a big snake, eating a flower rather than a child. So that's the biscione becomes the symbol of il cavaliere. And immediately when you talk about il biscione and you talk about Berlusconi, you know that we're talking about commercial TV.
Το 1986 ο Μπερλουσκόνι θα προσθέσει ένα ακόμη βέλος στη φαρέτα. Ενισχύει το φιλολαϊκό προφίλ του βαθύπλωτου επιχειρηματία και μεγιστάνα των μίντια με την αγορά μιας ιστορικής αλλά χρεοκοπημένης ομάδας που μέσα σε λίγα χρόνια και με πανάκριβες μεταγραφές θα την οδηγήσει στην κατάκτηση εθνικών, ευρωπαϊκών και παγκόσμιων τίτλων.
Berlusconi buys AC Milan because he's a Milanese supporter, but incidentally because it's great business. It's a great way to become well known, because when you are a TV entrepreneur, you are behind the screen. The moment he buys AC Milan, and he buys in a spectacular way. He lands his chopper onto San Siro Stadium. He meets his football team, and he considers them as part of his team. There's an adoring relation between football players and Berlusconi, and immediately he turns AC Milan into a profitable, limited corporation.
He brought the Milan, which was in a bad situation, to the stars at the first places in the scores, and so he looked like a King Mida, the man who transformed in gold whatever he touched, making fortunes here and there, which was very attractive for Italians who were accustomed with the old politicians.
Την περίοδο εκείνη, η προσωπική ζωή του είναι το ίδιο εντυπωσιακή, αλλά και πολυτάραχη. Ο Σίλβιο, παντρεμένος με την Κάρλα και πατέρας 2 παιδιών, ερωτεύεται την ηθοποιό και showwoman Βερόνικα Λάριο.
The story goes that he sees her topless in a theatre, he falls in love with her, sends hundreds of flowers, eventually decides that she has to move into his Fininvest headquarters in Via Rovani, this beautiful villa that is still there in the very bourgeoisie part of town, and he creates a little flat for her where she can live with her mother secretly while he's still married with his previous wife.
And it was very classical, like in thousands of movies. Berlusconi sent him zillion of roses and singing and jumping and sending presents.
He decides to divorce from his previous wife and eventually he will marry Veronica Lario, who will give to Silvio Berlusconi 3 children, 2 girls and a boy.
Το παλάτι της νέας οικογένειας θα είναι η Βίλα Σαν Μαρτίνο στο Άρκορε. Σε ένα αρχιτεκτονικό κόσμημα του 16ου αιώνα και σε έκταση 3.500 τετραγωνικών μέτρων, ο Μπερλουσκόνι υποδέχεται τους φίλους και συνεργάτες του και κλείνει συμφωνίες εκατομμυρίων. Εκεί, το 1994, ο ανταποκριτής του BBC, David Willey, συνάντησε για πρώτη φορά τον μετέπειτα Ιταλό πρωθυπουργό.
He's a man who's absolutely full of charm as well as wealth. He appeared in a white kimono, I remember, very relaxed and very willing really to talk about absolutely anything one asked him.
Αφορμή για την επίσκεψη του Βρετανού δημοσιογράφου ήταν η αποκαλυπτική ξενάγηση από τον γλύπτη Πιέτρο Κασέλα σε ένα μοναδικό έργο του στον κήπο της Βίλας, στο μαυσολείο της οικογένειας Μπερλουσκόνι.
It was built in the form of an ancient Etruscan tomb, of which there are many in central Italy. You go down a series of steps and turn right and go into an underground chamber. And I found myself into what looked like something from the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, a huge burial chamber with a pink granite sarcophagus right in the middle, which was Mr. Berlusconi wanted to as his tomb. And all around 36 little niches, burial places for who, I asked him. He said, well, family and business associates. Seemed very curious. I said, business associates? Yes, he said, yeah, you know, he used the word collaboratori, my business friends. The local authorities have decreed that, in fact, Mr. Berlusconi's tomb is totally illegal. He never asked for planning permission, and so whether he will be allowed to rest in that magnificent tomb when he dies, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Silvione! Ma a me perché non mi pigli, maledetto? Dov'è?
Lei?
Dov'è?
Lei, prima fila.
Mi piace proprio fisicamente, Silvione. Silvione, perché non diventiamo gai e ce ne andiamo in Puglia? In Puglia, Lecce, Taranto, Foggia, eh? Mai che viene che te si va in 3, menage à trois, eh? Così c'è Rete 4, menage à trois, Italia 1. Silvione, lo vorrei baciare, proprio nella bocca, dov'è? Silvione, Silvione, dove sei? T'ho preso stasera, erano anni!
Al tuo posto.
Silvio!
Al tuo posto. Stai attento a quello che firmi, eh?
Madonna.
Guarda cosa c'ho qui, eh?
If we remember Berlusconi in the 1960s as a young crooner, in the 1970s is a very flourishing real estate entrepreneur, in the 1980s is the TV man.
A funny man. Actually, something incredible. He adjusted the tie to everybody, adjusting the shoulders, which it makes also with Putin. Gets crazy and would like to kill him because they say, hey, Vladimir, and adjusting hair and tidying. I remember a chauffeur, a driver with a wrong button, and I say, he say, and go there, and say, he slapped in a gently way, and his red face of this man, and say, be careful, please, because we have guests here.
Poi la cravatta la si tiene più sotto il colletto, per il resto Mi sembra che... E la cravatta non deve spuntare da sotto la giacca. Deve togliersi la barba.
Perfetto, va bene, va bene.
Sì, sì, sì.
Lavoreremo.
La barba
è vero,
induce diffidenza nei confronti dell'interlotutore.
He hates intellectuals and people with a beard because he hates the cliché of the leftist intellectuals. He's surely an anti-fascist. He's a Catholic, which doesn't mean a practicant, devoted Catholic. But at the very same time, he personified the Italian soul.
Oh mamma mia, mi sull'unta, ego la nostalgia del me Milan, mi vorria torna domani, e il giuri curaria col carima.
Αρχές της δεκαετίας του 90, ο Σίλβιο Μπερλουσκόνι θεωρείται εξαιρετικά επιτυχημένος στην κατασκευή και αγοραπολισία ακινήτων. Τα κανάλια του μονοπολούν το ενδιαφέρον των Ιταλών τηλεθεατών, κερδίζει εκατομμύρια και τη μερίδα του λέοντος στη διαφημιστική αγορά, ελέγχει μερίδα του τύπου, κατακτά τίτλους και τρόπαια στο ποδόσφαιρο. Σύντομα θα έρθει η ώρα να εξαργυρώσει αυτή την επιτυχία του, μετατρέποντάς τη σε πολιτικό κεφάλαιο. Αρχές της δεκαετίας του 90. Μια ομάδα δικαστών με επικεφαλής τον εισαγγελέα Αντώνιο Ντι Πιέτρο ερευνά το λαβύρινθο των δωροδοκιών στην Ιταλική πολιτική σκηνή. Η επιχείρηση Καθαρά Χέρια φέρνει στην επιφάνεια δεκάδες υποθέσεις διαφθοράς με πρωταγωνιστές πολιτικούς και επιχειρηματίες. Ο τότε πρωθυπουργός Μπετίνο Κράξι, για να γλιτώσει τη φυλακή, διαφεύγει στην Τινησία. Η κάθαρση εξαφανίζει από τον πολιτικό χάρτη τα δύο μεγάλα κόμματα και σηματοδοτεί το τέλος της λεγόμενης πρώτης Ιταλικής Δημοκρατίας.
Never in a situation of peace and in the normal development of political systems occurred such a thing as the clean hand things, in which the two big parties, the parties who are running Italy, that is the alliance between Christian Democrats and Socialists, really collapsed.
Οι κατακλυσμίες αλλαγές στο πολιτικό σκηνικό και η χιονοστιβάδα των αποκαλύψεων για διεφθαρμένους πολιτικούς των δύο μεγάλων κομμάτων κινδυνεύει να συμπαρασύρει και τη Fininvest του Μπερλουσκόνι. Ο όμιλός του βρίσκεται πλέον δίχως πολιτική προστασία και με μια σειρά από σοβαρές δικαστικές εκκρεμότητες.
E Berlusconi che aveva in quel momento problemi di ordine finanziario, la sua società era particolarmente esposta col sistema bancario, ritenne di correre personalmente un pericolo e ritenne anche, in base alle sue convinzioni, che l'Italia potesse correre un pericolo laddove non si fosse costruita un'alternativa politica.
Credo che la risposta la conosci già. Certamente Gianfranco Fini.
Berlusconi feels the threat that the communist, his arch rival, might come to power. So he goes to prominent figure, to Gianni Agnelli, the patron and president of Fiat, owner of Fiat, and he says, we have to do something. We, the capitalist, the power of Italy, the leading figures, we have to step in and take control of politics. And Agnelli says, this is not my job. My father is a senator, my grandfather was a senator, I've never been involved into politics, I'm not going to do this.
Ο Πάολο Γκουζάντι, πρώην δημοσιογράφος, φίλος και τακτικός συνομιλητής του Μπερλουσκόνι, υποστηρίζει μια άλλη εκδοχή της ίδιας ιστορίας. Ότι δηλαδή ήταν οι επιχειρηματίες που έσπρωξαν τον μετέπειτα πρωθυπουργό στον πολιτικό στίβο.
They pushed Berlusconi. Berlusconi was actually reluctant to say, I have a lot of problem with the justice, because he already had a problem with the justice as an entrepreneur. He said, they will slaughter me. And he said, don't worry, we will support you and you'll see, you will succeed. And this was the famous statement of Gianni Agnelli, who said, if he wins for everybody. If he lose, he lose alone.
Ho scelto di scendere in campo e di occuparmi della cosa pubblica perché non voglio vivere in un paese illiberale governato da forze immature e da uomini legati a doppio filo a un passato politicamente ed economicamente fallimentare. Il movimento politico che vi propongo si chiama, non a caso, Forza Italia. Ciò che vogliamo farne è una libera organizzazione di elettrici e di elettori di tipo totalmente nuovo.
Forza Italia, which means up Italy. It's a football slogan. Up Italy, a sort of patriotic clarion call. And it was a very clever marketing maneuver because he used the language of football, which is Italy's most popular sport, and applied it to politics.
I understood the logic of politics would have become the one pro or against, enemies versus friends, and he really played this game really stupendously. I mean,
is football ideology behind Forza Italia?
Absolutely, absolutely.
E in definitiva, quindi, al di là di tutti i problemi.
He talked about scendere in campo, going onto the field. He used all this sports jargon. And of course, for Italians, ordinary Italians, this was quite refreshingly different from the sort of language they'd heard from the old-style politicians who've used deliberately abstract language and rather complicated political language, which many ordinary Italians simply couldn't follow.
E quindi Forza Italia. Forza Italia, come dicono le parole della nostra canzone, Forza Italia per fare. Forza Italia per crescere. Forza Italia per essere liberi. Forza Italia per costruire tutti insieme un grande, un nuovo, uno straordinario miracolo italiano.
Ο Καβαλιέρε χτίζει το νέο κόμμα πάνω στα θεμέλια των επιτυχημένων εταιριών που έχει δημιουργήσει. Η δεξαμενή από την οποία θα αντλήσει κομματικά στελέχη είναι τα διοικητικά συμβούλια των επιχειρήσεών του.
He transformed actually his own publishing company, Publitalia, in Forza Italia party. All these men became, the former employees became the party.
E molti colleghi che io frequentavo per parlare di cose di televisione, che fossero programmi o telepromozioni o iniziative prettamente professionali, da una settimana all'altra diventarono aspiranti uomini politici impegnati in una campagna elettorale, e pochi mesi dopo alcuni di loro erano governatori delle regioni, deputati, senatori, eccetera.
Το Forza Italia ήταν ένα κολοσιαίο τρίκ πολιτικής και μάρκετινγκ που ο μάγος των μίντια φανέρωσε ξαφνικά μέσα από ένα τέλειο διαφημιστικό πακέτο. Ο ύμνος του κόμματος, σε στίχους και μουσική του ίδιου του Σίλβιο Μπερλουσκόνι, κυκλοφορούσε ακόμη και σε έκδοση καραόκε.
He has been the first, I think, European political leader who has understood that a business format, the format of selling advertising and television programs, could be transferred into, applied into the political field. And this has been the genial idea of Silvio Berlusconi. In this sense, he has been a genius of the political field.
Potremo costruire un'Italia più giusta, un'Italia più generosa e sollecita verso chi soffre, verso chi ha bisogno.
He's the communicator, he's the maverick, he's the strategist guy, he's the guy who sits down with advertising people and says, what do the Italians think? What is their belly? What does their belly want? What do you think are the needs?
Un'Italia che sappia imporsi all'ammirazione degli altri non soltanto per il suo grande passato, ma per un suo nuovo magico presente.
He has been perceived, and he is still perceived, also like a sort of magician, a man with magic powers. He's a sort of film hero. He's a mediatic character. He's not anymore just a human being in our collective perception.
Questa che vedi è la tua Italia, un paese unico, fatto di cielo, di sole, di mare, ma anche di storia, di cultura e di arte. È un paese straordinario che devi ancora scoprire. Impiega le tue vacanze per conoscere meglio l'Italia, la tua magica Italia.
Berlusconi was the new political approach, more American as message, as capability to be clear, to be simple in the messages, and of course with this big media power. Berlusconi's enormous capability to communicate was something of really unique, absolutely supported by his media power. In the 90s and in the first years of this century, the Berlusconi's media power was very important in his success.
1994, Berlusconi is a prime minister with a major majority. We have to remember that there's a new electoral law which allows a bipolar system. So you have the left against Berlusconi. Berlusconi gets the power allied with the Northern League in the north and the post-fascist of Fini in the south. He wins a good majority. It doesn't last long. For two reasons. He goes against the trade unions. He presents himself as a liberal prime minister. He wants to change the country for good. Probably the very much reforms that are needed by Italy even now in 2011. It doesn't succeed. The Northern League splits out. Berlusconi fails. We have a technocrat government by Dini. Berlusconi is out of power in just more than a year. He will come back to power again in 2001.
Io sono il boss, l'imprenditore, il proprietario del partito dell'amore. Io sono il Cesare, leader mondiale. Io sono il Papi, l'utilizzator finale. La Camera è mia, è mio il Senato. Sono io il padrone di Ibrahimovic e Pato. C'ho banche, banchieri, c'ho case editrici, c'ho confalonieri, la Rai, Mediaset, gli attori e le attrici. È mio il giornale, è il Viminale, e è naturale fra 3 anni il Quirinale. Finalmente sarà mie, no è un fatto personale, magistratura e corte costituzionale. È tutto mio, faccio sul serio. Palazzo Chigi, Palazzo Grazioli, Palazzo Macherio, Palazzo Madama, c'ho Villa Certosa, che c'ha 1000 stanze, Castelli Antigua con 3000 dependenze. Le barzellette che racconto io, le scrivo io e fanno ridere Arcozio. Di aziende e banche ho fatto il pieno, basta così, domani compro il Martirreno, ma io compro tutto, dall'A alla Z. Ma quanto costa questo cazzo di pianeta? Lo voglio io, lo compro adesso, poi compro Dio, sarebbe a dir compro me stesso.